Today, we're going to hit the road towards real horror with 7 terrifying stories involving road trips. Get ready to hear chilling accounts of encounters with dangerous strangers, chases on deserted highways, stops at gas stations that turn into traps, and life-or-death situations on the roads. Let's explore stories of drivers and travelers who faced the darker side of humanity when they were far from the safety of home. So, sit back, make sure your car doors are locked, and let's start this hair-raising journey. Oh, and before we hit the road, take the opportunity to subscribe to the channel, activate the bell, and leave your like. This really helps the channel and ensures you don't miss out on any terrifying content like this. Let's go? The last stop. The case of Emma and Thomas Müller was documented by the German Federal Police as one of the most disturbing incidents involving gas stations in the country's recent history. The events of that night were reconstructed from police records, security recordings, and Müller's own statements. Emma, a 34-year-old doctor, and Thomas, a 36-year-old engineer, were returning home from a wedding in Berlin to their home in Hanover. It was almost midnight when they realized they were running out of fuel on the deserted Autobahn A2. The gauge was almost at reserve, and we hadn't seen a gas station for at least 50 kilometers, Thomas later reported. When we saw the lights of an isolated gas station near exit 63, it was a relief. The Schwarzwald gas station was small and old-fashioned, with just 2 pumps and a dimly lit convenience store. There were no other customers in sight when they pulled up, just a lone attendant watching them through the fogged-up window. While Thomas filled up the car, Emma went into the store to pay and buy coffee. The attendant, a thin man in his 50s, identified only as Klaus on his name tag, demonstrated behavior that immediately made her uncomfortable. He asked strange questions, Emma explained. Where we were going, whether anyone knew our exact location, whether we were in a hurry, and the whole time he was texting. Even more disturbing, Emma noticed that Klaus appeared to be discreetly photographing his car with his cell phone while pretending to organize products on the shelves. When asked about the station's closing time, he responded vaguely that it would remain open as long as necessary. Upon returning to the car, Emma shared her concerns with Thomas. While they were discussing whether they were being paranoid, they noticed something alarming. A dark vehicle had strategically parked outside the gas station, partially hidden in the shadows, with the engine running. That's when I realized we were in danger, Thomas said. The car was positioned to block our exit, and I could see at least 2 people inside. Emma's instincts as an emergency room doctor kicked in. She suggested they pretend to be normal while they came up with a plan. Thomas entered the store again, claiming to have forgotten to buy water while watching the attendant's movements. Inside the store, Thomas noticed a disturbing detail. A bulletin board covered in photos of vehicles, many with notes about the number of occupants and times. More alarmingly, there was a map of the Autobahn with red markings at specific locations. When Klaus went to the warehouse to answer a phone call, Thomas quickly photographed the painting with his cell phone. When he returned to the car, he showed the images to Emma. Some of the notes mentioned adequate or inadequate, as if they were assessments, Emma explained. And we recognized 2 recent news outlets about disappearances on the highway. The couple realized they were trapped. The post appeared to be a selection point for a kidnapping operation, with Klaus serving as an informant to identify potential victims. Emma noticed that the vehicle blocking the exit had turned on its headlights, as if preparing to intercept them. Simultaneously, Klaus left the store and began walking towards their car, talking on the phone. Using their training in emergency situations, the couple implemented a bold plan. Thomas started the engine while Emma called the police, giving them their exact location and the situation. Then, instead of trying to exit through the main entrance where the dark car waited, Thomas quickly maneuvered to the back of the station, where there was an unpaved service road. We didn't know if the road led anywhere, but it was our only chance, Thomas reported. The dark vehicle immediately gave chase, followed by a second car that emerged from a nearby wooded area. For nearly 20 minutes, the couple navigated dark, country roads, guided only by GPS and police phone guidance. When they finally spotted the lights of a police cruiser at an intersection ahead, their pursuers disappeared down the side roads. The subsequent investigation revealed the extent of the horror. The Schwarzwald station, officially closed 2 years ago but operating illegally, had been the base for a human trafficking network that operated along the A2 Autobahn. Klaus, later identified as Karl Schmidt, an ex-convict with a history of violent crimes, served as a scout identifying vulnerable travelers. The photographs on the bulletin board corresponded to at least 11 vehicles whose occupants had disappeared within the last 18 months. In an abandoned warehouse 5 kilometers from the post, police found evidence of recent captivity and false documents for international transport. For Emma and Thomas Müller, the experience left deep psychological scars. The most disturbing thing, Emma reflected during the trial, is to think how many people stopped at that checkpoint, never suspecting that they were being valued as merchandise. The case has led to a complete review of security protocols at isolated gas stations in Germany, with new regulations requiring surveillance systems connected directly to authorities. And for the thousands of drivers who travel Germany's autobahns every day, the case of the last stop serves as a grim reminder that sometimes the real danger on the roads lies not in speed or weather conditions, but in the places where we stop to rest. The Ghost Town. The Harper brothers' case was documented by the Nevada Department of Investigation as one of the most disturbing incidents involving isolated communities in the state's recent history. The events of those 36 hours were reconstructed from police records and the testimonies of survivors. Alex and Sarah Harper, siblings from Seattle, were driving through the Nevada desert toward Las Vegas when a sudden dust storm drastically reduced visibility on Highway 95. With their gas nearly empty and their GPS dead, they spotted a weathered sign reading Millerville 3 miles. It seemed like our only option, Sarah later reported. The storm was getting worse, and we hadn't seen another sign of civilization for hours. The country road took them to a small town that looked like something out of a 1950s movie. A main street with faded storefronts, a small church, and scattered houses. There were no people visible on the streets, but some lights were on. The strange thing was that it wasn't on the map, Alex explained. I thought it was one of those ghost towns from the mining boom, partially preserved for tourists. They stopped, in front of a building with a weathered sign, Hotel Millerville. After ringing the doorbell several times, they were greeted by an elderly woman who introduced herself as Martha. She seemed surprised, but quickly offered a room. "We don't get many visitors," said Martha, explaining that most of the residents had left years ago when the local mine closed. Only a few of us decided to stay. The hotel was impeccably clean, despite its worn-out appearance. Martha reported that the only restaurant in town, Miller's Diner, was still in operation and served dinner until 8. At the restaurant, they met about 10 locals, all of whom were overly friendly and curious about their trip. The chef, a man named Robert, insisted they try the local specialty, a stew with desert herbs. There was something strange about the way everyone watched us eat, Sarah recalled, as if they were waiting for a specific reaction. After a few bites, Alex began to feel dizzy. Sarah, who had just tasted the food, realized something was wrong when she noticed that the locals were not eating the same dish. "We need to go," she whispered, helping Alex up. "Something's not right." When they left the restaurant, they saw that their car had disappeared from the parking lot. When they questioned Robert, he smiled strangely. No one leaves Millerville after sunset. It's dangerous out there. Returning to the hotel, Alex quickly deteriorated, barely being conscious. Sarah locked her bedroom door and started searching for help on her cell phone, but there was no signal. Through the window, he saw groups of residents gathering in the streets, some carrying lanterns, as if they were organizing themselves. While searching the room looking for something to help her brother, Sarah discovered something disturbing. A small door hidden behind a closet. When he opened it, he found a space that seemed to have been a panic room, now transformed into a macabre archive. The walls were covered with photos of people, apparently past travelers. Each photo showed the same process: people confused, then sedated, and finally in various stages of what appeared to be some kind of primitive medical procedure. Diaries detailed experiments on subjects over decades. That's when I realized we weren't dealing with simple thieves or kidnappers, Sarah explained. It was something much more sinister. With Alex getting worse and worse, Sarah realized they needed to escape immediately. Using tied sheets, he managed to climb down through the back window of the hotel while carrying his semi-conscious brother. In the darkness, he navigated the small town's alleys, avoiding the search parties who were now calling his names in falsely concerned voices. "Sarah! Alex! You need medical help!" Upon reaching the city limits, Sarah made a shocking discovery: a fenced area containing dozens of vehicles, cars, trucks and motorcycles from different eras, some appearing to be decades old. His own car was there, the keys still in the ignition. As he placed Alex in the back seat, he heard voices approaching. Martha led a group of locals, all now dropping their friendly facades. "You don't understand," cried Martha. "We need you. New blood keeps the city alive." Sarah managed to start the car and escape, driving frantically down the dark desert road. Only the next morning, after hours of driving, did they encounter a highway patrol and report their experience. Subsequent investigation revealed a disturbing truth. Millerville had not been on official maps for more than 60 years. The town had been officially abandoned in 1962 when the silver mine closed, but a small group of residents refused to leave. Isolated and determined to preserve their community at any cost, they developed bizarre practices involving transfusions and renewals using captured travelers. Documents found suggested they believed this process kept them young and healthy. Authorities found the town exactly as described, but completely abandoned. The residents had disappeared, taking most of the evidence with them. Excavations have revealed human remains dating back several decades. For Alex and Sarah Harper, the experience left deep psychological scars. The most disturbing thing, Sarah reflected, is that we probably weren't the first to escape. But no one believed the others. How many people have disappeared from that town over the years? The case has led to a review of maps and records of abandoned communities in Nevada, with new investigations into unsolved disappearances on desert highways. The deviation, the case of the group of friends on Estrada Nacional 340, was documented by the Spanish Guardia Civil as one of the most disturbing incidents involving road diversions in the country's recent history. The events of those 12 hours were reconstructed from police records and the testimonies of survivors. Elena, Miguel, Carlos and Sofia, 4 friends from Madrid in their 20s, were on their way to their holiday in Malaga when they came across an unexpected detour near the town of Motril. A makeshift sign read, "N340 closed, use detour." It seemed strange, Elena reported later. There was no advance warning of roadworks, and the GPS still showed the original route as open. Reluctantly, but with no other apparent option, the group followed the detour down a secondary road that wound through the arid hills of Andalusia. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the desolate landscape. After about 30 minutes, On the deserted road, Miguel, who was driving, noticed something in the rear-view mirror. "There's a car following us," he said, the tension evident in his voice. "It's been keeping exactly the same distance for a few kilometers." The vehicle was an old, dark sedan, with its headlights on even in the twilight. Its license plate was not visible due to the distance and the dust on the road. Carlos suggested that they increase speed to see if the car would react. When they did, the mysterious vehicle also accelerated, maintaining the same distance. "That's when we started to get really worried," Sophia said. "That road was completely empty except for us and that car. The group tried to use their cell phones to call for help or check their location, but found there was no signal. The car's GPS had also lost connection, showing only a blank map. As night fell, the situation became more tense. The pursuing car would occasionally flash its headlights or honk its horn, as if trying to communicate or intimidate. In one particularly frightening moment, the vehicle suddenly accelerated, coming within a few meters of the friend's car before backing up again. "I thought they were going to run us off the road," Miguel recalled, visibly shaking as he recounted the incident. Desperate for help, the group decided to stop at the next town they found. After what seemed like an eternity, they saw lights in the distance, a small settlement in the hills. As they entered the city, they noticed something disturbing. The streets were deserted, and many houses seemed abandoned. The only building with signs of life was a gas station on the outskirts of town. Relieved to see another human being, they stopped at the gas station. The attendant, an elderly man with a distant look in his eyes, listened to his story about the pursuing car with an unsettling calm. "Ah, it must be old Martinez," he said with a strange smile. "He likes to play with the tourists who get lost here." When asked how to get back to the main road, the attendant gave vague instructions, insisting that they should continue along the same route. "It's the only way out of here," he said. As they refueled, Elena noticed something alarming. There were several cars parked at the back of the station, all covered in tarps. One of them had a partially visible license plate. It was from Madrid, like theirs. With a growing feeling of dread, the group decided to ignore the attendant's instructions and try to find another way back to the main road. As they left the gas station, they saw the dark sedan parked across the street, its driver, a shadowy figure, watching them intently. What followed was a terrifying chase through the winding hill roads. The sedan followed them relentlessly, sometimes trying to force them off the road, other times just maintaining a menacing presence behind them. It was Carlos who finally spotted a sign for the A7, the coastal highway. With his heart racing, Miguel made a sudden turn, almost overturning the car, but managing to enter the access ramp. The pursuing sedan, taken by surprise, drove straight through the entrance. For the first time in hours, the group breathed a sigh of relief. Arriving in Malaga, they went straight to the police. The subsequent investigation revealed a disturbing truth. Over the past 2 years, there had been several reports of disappearances in that particular area of N340. All involved tourists who had supposedly taken a detour. The gas station they had visited was not recorded in any official records. When authorities went to investigate, they found the place abandoned, with no sign of the elderly attendant. Even more disturbing, excavations on the outskirts of the ghost town have revealed human remains and belongings of missing people, some dating back several years. For Elena, Miguel, Carlos, and Sofia, the experience left deep psychological scars. The scariest thing, Elena reflected, is thinking about how many people fell into this trap before us and never managed to escape. The case led to a review of safety protocols on secondary roads in Spain, with new measures to check and authorize official deviations. And for the thousands of tourists who travel the picturesque roads of Andalusia each summer, the case of the detour serves as a grim reminder that not all alternative paths lead to enchanting discoveries. Some can lead to a nightmare from which few can escape. What's up, guys? The horror stories on the roads are chilling even now, aren't they? If you're enjoying these scary and real stories, how about taking a quick stop and subscribing to the channel? Just click the sign up button below and take the opportunity to leave your like too. This really helps the channel grow and motivates me to continue bringing you more terrifying content like this. It's quick and makes all the difference. Now, shall we get back to our road horror stories? There's still a lot of fear ahead. The Road Motel, the Wallaby Motel case, was documented by the Australian Federal Police as one of the most disturbing incidents involving accommodation establishments in the country's recent history. The events of those 48 hours were reconstructed from police records, forensic evidence, and the testimonies of survivors. Jack and Emma Thompson, a couple from Brisbane, were on the third day of an outback road trip when they came across the Wallaby Motel, a secluded establishment on the Stuart Highway. Exhausted after hours of driving in the intense heat, they decided to stop for the night. The place looked like something out of an old movie, Emma reported. Worn but clean. The owner, a man named Ned, was exceedingly friendly. The motel only had 5 rooms, and Ned reported that they were the only guests that night. As they settled into their room, Jack noticed something strange, a small glow coming from behind the bathroom mirror. At first, I thought it was just a reflex, Jack said, but something bothered me. Curious, Jack examined the mirror more closely and discovered to his horror a small hidden camera. A quick search revealed 2 more cameras, one in the ceiling, light, and another camouflaged in the air conditioning. The couple, in silent panic, decided to act as if nothing was wrong as they planned their escape. When Jack went out to get something from the car, he discovered that his tires had been deflated. Returning to the room, he shared the discovery with Emma. That's when they noticed a disturbing detail. The room's walls were decorated with framed photos of previous guests. There was something wrong with those photos, Emma recalled, shaking. The looks were pure terror. As they discussed their options, they heard footsteps in the hallway. Through the peephole, they saw Ned dragging an unconscious body into one of the empty rooms. Sensing imminent danger, the couple barricaded the door and frantically searched for a way out. The window was too small to fit through, and cell phone signal was non-existent. Jack found a maintenance passage behind the closet, possibly used to access the cameras. Silently, they crept past it, arriving at a dark cellar. The basement revealed the true horror of the Wallaby Motel. There were dozens of monitors showing live feeds from the rooms and shelves full of hard drives labeled with dates and names. Even more disturbing, they found an area that looked like a makeshift studio with professional filming equipment and macabre props. We realized it wasn't just voyeurism, Jack said. He was producing some kind of sinister content. Hearing Ned come down the stairs, the couple hid behind stacked boxes. They watched in horror as he reviewed recent recordings, taking notes and occasionally laughing disturbingly. When Ned left to check on the other guests, Jack and Emma acted quickly. They found a locked emergency exit and, using an iron bar found in the basement, they managed to force it open. Running through the darkness of the desert, they heard furious screams coming from the motel. Ned had discovered his escape. For hours, they wandered through the outback, guided only by the stars. At dawn, exhausted and dehydrated, they were found by a truck driver who took them to the nearest police station. The subsequent investigation revealed the extent of the Wallaby Motel horror. Ned Wilkins, the owner, was involved in producing snuff films, videos of actual torture and murder sold on the online black market. Authorities found evidence linking Wilkins to the disappearances of at least 17 travelers over the past 5 years. The motel had been strategically positioned in an area with little cell phone coverage and rarely patrolled by police. More shockingly, it turned out that Wilkins had a network of employees, other isolated motel owners who occasionally sent interesting guests his way. For Jack and Emma Thompson, the experience left deep psychological scars. The most disturbing thing, Emma reflected during the trial, is thinking about how many people stayed there without ever suspecting that they were being watched and selected. And I can't even think about what happened next. The case has led to a review of safety protocols for isolated accommodation establishments in Australia, with new regulations requiring regular inspections and emergency communication systems. And for travellers exploring the vast expanses of the Australian outback, the case of the roadside motel serves as a grim reminder that sometimes the most dangerous refuge is one that offers shelter from the unforgiving wilderness, a place where the walls have eyes and the host has sinister plans for his unsuspecting guests. Ned Wilkins was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The investigation into his network of collaborators continues, casting an unsettling shadow over the isolated motels that dot Australia's remote roads. License plate. Daniel Mitchell's case was documented by the Royal Canadian Mounted Police as one of the most disturbing highway chase incidents in the country's recent history. The events of those 3 days were reconstructed from police records, highway cameras, and Mitchell's own testimony. Daniel, a 34-year-old nature photographer, was driving alone from Vancouver to Calgary on a work trip. On the second day of the trip, while crossing the Rocky Mountains, he began to notice something strange. A dark blue sedan appeared repeatedly in his rearview mirror. "Initially, I didn't think much about it," Daniel reported. "It's a main highway, after all, but after 3 rest stops and hundreds of miles, the same car was still there, always keeping the same distance." The sedan, an older Toyota Camry, had an Alberta license plate that Daniel was able to memorize after seeing it several times. The driver, always wearing a cap and sunglasses, seemed to deliberately remain partially hidden. While stopping for gas in Golden, British Columbia, Daniel decided to test his theory. Instead of continuing along the Trans-Canadens, he took an unexpected detour onto a secondary road. 15 minutes later, the blue sedan reappeared in his rearview mirror. "That's when I really started to worry," Daniel said. "That wasn't a coincidence." That night, staying at a hotel in Banff, Daniel used his laptop to look up the vehicle's license plate on a public registration website. The result left him cold. The license plate belonged to a Toyota Camry, registered to Robert Mackenzie, an Edmonton man who had been declared dead 3 years earlier. According to online reports, Mackenzie had disappeared during a fishing trip, and her body was found weeks later. The official cause of death, accidental drowning. "I thought maybe I wrote down the wrong license plate," Daniel explained, "or that the car had been sold after the owner's death." The next morning, upon leaving the hotel, Daniel immediately noticed the blue sedan parked across the street. Deciding to confront the situation, he discreetly took photos of the vehicle and sent them along with the license plate to a police officer friend in Vancouver, asking him to verify the information. Continuing his journey, Daniel noticed that the sedan was keeping a greater distance now, as if the driver knew he had been noticed. On a particularly isolated stretch of highway, the vehicle suddenly accelerated, coming alongside Daniel's car. For a brief moment, the two drivers looked at each other. The man's face, Daniel hesitated as he described it. It was as if he was wearing some kind of mask or prosthetic. There was something deeply wrong with his appearance. The sedan then accelerated and disappeared ahead. Shaken, Daniel called his police officer friend, who confirmed the disturbing information. The vehicle actually belonged to Robert Mackenzie and had never been reported sold or transferred after his death. Even more unsettling, his friend mentioned, that there were other recent reports of a similar blue sedan following lone travelers on the Trans-Canadian. In 2 cases, the pursued drivers subsequently disappeared. Upon arriving in Canmore, the last city before Calgary, Daniel decided to look for the local police station. While recounting his experience, he received a text message from an unknown number. "Nice photos, but you shouldn't have done that." Alarmed, Daniel showed the message to the police officer, who immediately organized an escort for the rest of his trip to Calgary. During the journey, there was no sign of the blue sedan. The next morning, while preparing for his photo shoot at a nature park outside Calgary, Daniel received another message from the same number. "Look in the passenger seat." When he checked his locked car, he found something that made him panic, his own wallet, which he was sure was in his pocket. When he checked, he discovered that he was carrying a wallet identical to his own, but containing Robert Mackenzie's documents. The subsequent investigation revealed a disturbing truth. The body identified as Robert Mackenzie 3 years earlier had been misidentified due to advanced decomposition. The real Mackenzie had assumed the identity of one of his victims and had been using his own death as cover for a series of crimes on the isolated roads of Western Canada. Forensic analysis linked DNA found in the blue sedan, eventually located abandoned near the Montana border, to 3 unsolved disappearances. In the trunk, police found a macabre collection of victims' memorabilia, including wallets, phones, and most disturbingly, photographs taken without the victim's knowledge, some showing Daniel at his hotel in Banff. For Daniel Mitchell, the experience permanently changed his relationship with solo travel. "The scariest thing," he reflected, "was not just being followed, but the realization that he could have attacked me at any moment. He was just playing with me, studying me, like a predator studies its prey." The case led to a review of victim identification and death verification procedures in the province of Alberta, as well as increased patrols on isolated stretches of the Trans-Canadian Highway. And for the thousands of travelers who travel the majestic roads that cut through the Canadian Rockies, the case of the license plate serves as a grim reminder that sometimes the deadliest danger is not the wilderness flanking the road, but another traveler, someone who, officially, shouldn't even be alive anymore. The abandoned police station. The case of the tourists in the Subukia region was documented by the Kenya National Police as one of the most disturbing incidents involving abandoned police posts in the country's recent history. The events of those 24 hours were reconstructed from police records and the testimonies of survivors. Lucas and Sophia, a European tourist couple, were driving along a country road in Nakuru County when their rental car began to have mechanical problems. Smoke coming from the hood forced them to stop in a remote area surrounded by farmland and dense vegetation. "We were completely lost," Sophia later reported. "The GPS wasn't working properly in that area, and we hadn't seen any other vehicles for at least an hour. As they tried to call the rental company, they realized there was no cell phone signal. That was when they saw, approximately half a kilometer away, what appeared to be a small, rural police station. It was a huge relief," Lucas said. "We thought we were finally going to get help." The post, a modest building with a faded Kenyan flag flying from a flagpole, appeared to be in reasonable condition, although clearly old. As they approached, they noticed that there were no parked vehicles, just an old dusty Jeep. At the entrance, they were greeted by a man wearing what appeared to be a police uniform, although slightly different from the ones they had seen in larger cities. He introduced himself as Officer Kimani and invited them inside. There was something strange about his behavior, Sophia recalled. He seemed simultaneously anxious and overly friendly. The inside of the station was surprisingly dark, with only a few working light bulbs. The officer explained that they were having problems with electricity, something common in that rural area. As they described his car problem, Lucas noticed disturbing details. A thin layer of dust covered almost everything, and a calendar on the wall showed the year 2006. When asked about mechanical assistance, Officer Kimani mentioned that he could call a tow, but that it would take a few hours to arrive. He suggested that they wait at the station, offering them tea. That's when I started to realize something was very wrong, Lucas said. Looking more closely around, I saw that some documents on the table were dated almost 2 decades ago. As the officer left to call for tow, Sophia noticed a door ajar, leading to another room. Curious, she peeked in and saw something that left her cold. Several backpacks and suitcases piled up in a corner, some looking relatively new. When the officer returned with the tea, Lucas decided to test his suspicions. He casually mentioned that they had passed by a larger police station in a nearby town. The reaction was immediate. The officer's face hardened, and he quickly changed the subject. During the conversation, the couple noticed other inconsistencies. The man avoided questions about other officers, how long he had worked there, and occasionally used outdated police terminology. The situation became even more tense when they heard a muffled sound coming from a back room, something that sounded disturbingly like a human groan. The officer quickly explained that it was just the wind in the old windows. Determined to get out of there, Lucas pretended to need medicine in the car. Once outside, he whispered to Sophia that he believed they were in danger. That station looks like it's been abandoned for years. Whoever that man is, he's not a police officer. As they discreetly attempted to return to their vehicle, the officer suddenly appeared, blocking their path. His demeanor had changed completely, the friendly smile replaced by a menacing expression. "You can't leave now," he said coldly. "The tow is on its way." What followed was a desperate struggle. When the man tried to grab Sophia, Lucas pushed him hard, giving them time to run to the car. Even with the engine having problems, they managed to start it and escape, with the fake police officer chasing them on foot for several meters before giving up. Driving precariously for almost an hour, they finally found a main road and a gas station with a telephone. The real police were contacted immediately. The subsequent investigation revealed the disturbing truth. The Kipngochoch police station had been built in 2006 but was never officially occupied, remaining abandoned for 18 years. The man posing as a police officer was Michael Kinyanjui, an ex-convict who had turned the abandoned site into his base to prey on lost tourists. In searching the post, authorities found evidence linking Kinyanjui to the disappearance of at least 3 other groups of tourists over the past 2 years. The jeep he kept parked outside the post was used to create the illusion of an official establishment. For Lucas and Sophia, the experience left deep psychological scars. The most disturbing thing, Sophia reflected during the trial, was realizing how blindly we trusted him simply because he wore a uniform. We never questioned whether the post was actually active. The case has led to a review of rural police stations in Kenya, with new measures to identify and demolish abandoned facilities that could be used by criminals, and for tourists exploring the country's rural regions. The case of the abandoned police station serves as a grim reminder that sometimes those who appear to offer safety can pose the greatest danger. The closed community, Olivia and Nathan, newlyweds from London, had chosen the Scottish Highlands for their honeymoon, drawn by the promise of stunning scenery and tranquility. Through an exclusive accommodation website, they booked a week in Glencairn, described as a preserved traditional Scottish community rarely open to visitors. It looked perfect, Olivia later reported. Authentic, isolated, and far from the conventional tourist routes. The drive to Glencairn was an adventure in itself, the last hour along a unique dirt road surrounded by heather-covered hills. When they arrived, they were warmly welcomed by the residents, led by a man called Malcolm, who introduced himself as the keeper of traditions. The village was picturesque, with about 20 stone houses arranged around a central square. There was no sign of modern technology, no cell phone antennas, visible electrical cables or satellites. Residents explained that they lived the old way, generating limited electricity through a community generator. The first 2 days we were blown away, Nathan said. The food was incredible, the people extremely hospitable, and the scenery breathtaking. It was on the 3rd day that they noticed the first anomalies. During a walk, they attempted to follow a path that apparently led to a lookout point in the hills, only to be intercepted by 2 men who insisted on redirecting them, claiming the area was dangerous for visitors. That night, at the community dinner, Olivia noticed something disturbing in the conversations. Residents would occasionally mention other special visitors who had stayed at Glencairn, but when asked directly about them, they would abruptly change the subject. I started noticing strange patterns, Olivia explained, like the way everyone seemed to monitor our movements, always knowing where we were. The next morning, the couple decided to take a day trip to a nearby town. When they mentioned their plans to Malcolm, his reaction was revealing. A moment of tension, followed by a forced smile. He explained that unfortunately, the bridge connecting Glencairn to the main road had been damaged by recent rain. When we asked to see the bridge, he said it was too dangerous, Nathan recalled. That's when we decided to investigate on our own. Pretending to go for a morning walk, the couple tried to locate the road they had arrived on. Surprisingly, after hours of searching, they were unable to find her. Each path they followed seemed to circle back to the village or end abruptly in impassable terrain. That night, while everyone was sleeping, Nathan found a cell phone hidden in Malcolm's house, something completely contradictory to the community's supposed rejection of modern technology. When he turned it on, he discovered that there was a signal, albeit weak. He quickly sent a message to his brother, briefly explaining the situation and asking for help. The next day, the atmosphere in the village had subtly changed. The smiles seemed forced, and the couple noticed that they were being observed more openly. During dinner, Malcolm announced that there would be a special ceremony in his honor the following night. The way he said ceremony gave me goosebumps, Olivia reported, and I noticed that several residents avoided looking directly at us. Discreetly exploring the village, the couple made a disturbing discovery. In a locked barn on the outskirts, they found suitcases and personal belongings that clearly belonged to other visitors. More alarmingly, they saw what appeared to be detailed records of previous visitors, with notes about their physical characteristics and behaviors. Convinced they were in imminent danger, Olivia and Nathan planned their escape. In the early hours before the ceremony, using a compass that Nathan carried as a keychain, they determined the northeast direction, where they believed the main road should be, and fled. The escape was terrifying. Less than an hour after their departure, they heard the sound of an alarm in the village, followed by voices calling their names and dogs barking. For hours, they navigated the rugged terrain, guided only by their compass and starlight. At dawn, exhausted and disoriented, they finally found a paved road. A passing truck driver took them to the nearest town, where they contacted the police. The subsequent investigation revealed the disturbing truth about Glencairn. The community had been founded in the 1970s as a legitimate social experiment, but gradually evolved into an isolationist cult under the leadership of Malcolm Campbell, a former university professor with a history of manipulative behavior. Authorities discovered that the community had developed an elaborate system to disorient visitors, including false paths, moving markers, and even soft drugs mixed into food to increase confusion. The ceremony mentioned was part of a permanent integration ritual, a euphemism for what would essentially be kidnapping and brainwashing. For Olivia and Nathan Reed, the experience left deep psychological scars. The most disturbing thing, Olivia reflected, was realizing how easily we were manipulated. Every aspect of the experience was carefully designed to make us let our guard down. The case led to a wider investigation into isolated communities in the Scottish Highlands and the creation of an official register to monitor tourist establishments in remote areas. And so we come to the end of our 7 horror stories involving road trips. So what did you think? Which story gave you the most goosebumps? The scariest thing is knowing that all these situations could happen to any of us, right? Tell me in the comments which one was your favorite. If you enjoyed this dive into the terrifying world of highways and the real dangers they hide, don't forget to leave a like. This really helps the channel grow and motivates me to keep bringing more scary content like this. And if you are not yet registered, take the opportunity now to sign up and activate the bell.